You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
A source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the prophets.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the 90s, built $1 billion company that held up high. A lot of things.
State of MedTech.
With your host, Omar and Khateeb.
What's going on, you med rep savages? Welcome back to the show. Today's solo pod is a little bit different. It's not a solo pod, actually. I wanted to invite on my good friend, Matt Simon, who's a financial advisor as part of March Financial. Matt Simon's the only guy that I know who is essentially a financial advisor who provides wealth management strategies to medical device reps, not medical device CEOs, et cetera, but specifically medical device reps, which I think is so important because a lot of you, very much like me when I started my med device career, we start out in our 20s and 30s. Many of us are single, don't even have kids. And I really wish at the time I had somebody to help advise, right? And give me some guidance on, wealth creation strategies. I think maybe at the time I had a little bit of an ego and I thought I could do it on my own. And just for context, this episode is not sponsored by Matt or his firm or anything. I actually just wanted to have him on because one, he's one of the people I follow on LinkedIn whose content around finance is amazing. Also some great self-development content. And I just wanted to have him on because I don't know anybody who's actually doing wealth management or financial advising for med device reps. So Matt, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Omar. I've been watching your podcast for a while now and you do great work for the industry. So I'm glad to be here.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And also, just for those who are listening, and so Matt, if you follow him, puts out amazing content. It's all him, but he has a little bit of help in the background. He's actually a member and one of the creators in the Omni Creator community. Omni Creator is a SaaS company and creator community that I co-founded, where essentially it helps you create, automate, and scale your content. It's an amazing platform. If you're interested to learn more, go to omnicreator.club and use the invitation code podcast. But just real quick, Matt, I mean, what do you like most about the tool and the community?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was using LinkedIn for a while, right? Just posting directly on there. And I think what really got better using Omni Creator was kind of like my formatting. I can use bold, italics. You could do all that good stuff through Omni Creator. And you could also see before you post what it looks like on a cell phone view. So you could kind of optimize for people's views and see how it looks.
Yeah, I'm glad you like that. I think for me, the one of the things I love most is just it stores all my videos and content. So it's very easy for me to look back and see based on data what scales and what hasn't. That's, Omni, I would say, actually scaled me past 30K followers. But the other thing that I started using more of is Starlog, which is the audio to text AI assistant. So I'll turn it on sometimes when I'm in a meeting or when I'm listening to a video, immediately transcribes things in it, like using the ChatGPT API just turns it into a post. So it just makes it a lot of fun. But anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's talk about finance. So the first thing I kind of want to start out with is, first of all, like, why do you focus on medical device reps and how did you get into doing this?
Yeah, that's a good question to lead off with. So I spent my first 2 years in business really trying to work with everybody that I knew. I figured that, everybody needs help with money, so why shouldn't I try to help everyone? I eventually kind of came to realize that it's better to niche down and pick a focus. If you're talking to everyone, you're kind of talking to no one. The problem was that I didn't know who I wanted to focus on. So after thinking about my own goals, looking back at my clients that I've worked with up to that point, I kind of eventually settled on sales reps in general. I had a good friend in medical sales. I was watching him make good money, but I kind of thought that all sales reps had similar situations, and I wanted to keep my niche a little broader. So I started focusing on sales reps, and that's pretty much just because they're similar to me. They're growth-minded, they have a variable income. A lot of reps get equity compensation, which can be fun to plan around. And sometimes they're also 1099 like myself, which really means that we run our own business and we can get more creative with our tax planning. But it also means that you might not receive benefits from your company, like a 401k or insurance. So you could use some help replacing that on your own. Pretty soon, though, I realized that I was more aligned with the medical sales reps in particular, rather than people in tech or software sales. I just got the feeling that med reps as a whole are more mission driven. They really seem to care more about the products they sell and the doctors and patients that they serve. We all want to make money and we all want to make more sales, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just felt like the medical sales reps really care more about what they're doing. And I feel like when you're dealing with someone's health or their finances, you should really kind of have that approach when you're going at it. So
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I completely agree with you. And especially again, some of those like basics of like building financial literacy and wealth are so important. Especially the earlier you do it, the better. Where do you see most reps struggling when it comes to their personal finances?
yeah, so most reps that I meet, they make good money, they work hard at their jobs, but because of the fact that they work long hours, they don't always prioritize their own finances. I think a lot of reps assume that earning a higher income will kind of solve all their problems, but really that's not always the case. There's a lot of high earners living paycheck to paycheck. So I guess I'd say the biggest struggle is just not knowing where all their money's going. They're good at earning it, but not so good at managing it or tracking it.
Yeah, and I just to be like perfectly honest, like I was one of those people earlier on in my career where I just thought, well, if I just make more money, that solves everything. But you really have to have like some discipline and more importantly, guidance. Right now for myself, even I'm a lot more savvy when it comes to my finances and investments. But even now, like one of my best friends, who between him and his brother make in the 9 figures now in their business, asked me a really good question where he said, hey, like, tell me in a sentence, what do you do? And I answer that question. He's like, great. He's like, nowhere in there did you say investor. And he's like, if you want to build long-term wealth, Omar, he's like, you gotta get somebody to help you. And then they brought me in and to their wealth management advisor who took me on. And so that person is unemotional and is on top of me and making sure that I'm doing the right things with my money. Why do you think, when we talk about reps, like why do you think reps fail to work like with an advisor or planner?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. There's a few common objections that I hear from reps: not enough time, not enough money. Why would I pay an advisor for something I could do on my own? For the not enough time objection, I always say that having an advisor should actually save you time. In the beginning, you do have to be a little more committed. You're going to have to gather documents and statements, have some meetings with the advisor, take some action on any items that they recommend. But the time that you're going to save from working with a good advisor or planner, it's going to save you a lot of time on the back end, and you're just going to make sure you get things done right the first time. The money objection is sometimes a harder one to overcome, but I usually tell people that you wouldn't wait to see a doctor. You wouldn't wait till you're dying to see a doctor. So you shouldn't wait till you're super wealthy or super comfortable to see an advisor. And like you kind of just said, the earlier you start, the better. And then lastly, a good advisor, planner, coach, personal trainer, consultant, any of those things, they should all bring more value than they charge for. So med reps are smart. They can figure out how to do a lot of these things on their own, but it doesn't mean it's the best use of their time. If they were to pay someone like me and my team to help with their finances, that extra time that they would have been doing either market research or rebalancing their portfolios, they could use that time to make more sales or just to spend more time with their family. So it's a win-win for everybody. A lot of people really think that an advisor only invests your money, and they don't see the value in paying someone to put their money in index funds or something like that. But a good advisor looks not just at your investments and your retirement planning, but also your employee benefits, your taxes, your estate planning, your business, your real estate, even your family situation. So really just anything you got going on is what your advisor should be helping with.
Yeah. And like, look, I completely agree with you on that. And again, so there's a small percentage of people that I know of who love this stuff, who like to do it on their own. They're researching everything. They don't need a financial advisor. But for most people, including myself, like you need one because like, it's not even the time. I have no interest in learning about that stuff and getting into details about it. And again, I think the smart thing that I've learned, especially as an entrepreneur over time, is that the only time travel like mechanism I found is paying experts to either guide me, coach me, or do it for me. Because then I buy back my time. And then with that time, I can focus on things that are actually going to bring me more money, more satisfaction, and fulfillment in my life. I'll give you an example from my own experience. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but when I was like in my 20s, I was at like the one company I was at, right? They actually did a 401k match. Okay. And I never took advantage of it until like maybe 3 quarters later or 4 quarters later. Only because like some rep made a comment about like 401ks like negatively. And I was like, oh yeah, like, I think they're smart, right? I'm not going to do it. And then just by luck, a couple quarters later, like somebody I was talking to somebody about it, and they said like, "Hey, are you like crazy? That's free money. Why aren't you taking that?" And so like those mistakes could have been avoided, and I could have not only maximized it, but taken advantage of every financial opportunity that I had I had an advisor, earlier on in my career.
And another thing I'll kind of add to that is when you mentioned earlier your wealth advisor, you talked about him being unemotional. That's another key, is the fact that, you might know exactly what to do, but doesn't mean you're going to do it. If the market crashes 50% and you watch your retirement portfolio fall in half, are you actually going to follow the plan, or is emotions going to take over? So it's nice to have that person there who's kind of coaching you through it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, at least my investments have only grown over time, mainly because, I mean, for me, I've just learned and trained myself to be very unemotional. These are just numbers on a screen for me. So it's just like, whatever. But also I have the right team behind me who are guiding me so that if I get a little bit like antsy, they kind of objectively and unemotionally are able to guide me. What do you think the most important things that reps should know about financial planning? Because when you say financial planning, that kind of means a lot of things, right? What's the most important things that reps need to know?
Yeah, I would kind of just repeat what I said to the last question about that financial planning is not just an investment proposal. It's not just an insurance policy. And it's not even just like a document that you're going to get. That might be part of the plan, but financial planning itself is the process that you go through. It gives you a roadmap to follow. It provides clarity around everything in your financial world. The plan helps you stay organized and on track to hit your goals, but planning is a process, if that makes sense.
Totally. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier is outside of like your basic financial plans, you mentioned about equity and everything. And I think that's another important thing that a lot of reps, especially ones who are leaving, let's say, the larger companies, and they go to a startup, like they tell me, I was like, oh, like I joined the startup, I got 50,000 shares. I'm like, great. That doesn't mean anything. And, including, questions like, okay, like when are you going to exercise your options and what the tax burden those have? All those things, again, you need somebody helping you. I'm wondering, you're not going to take on every single rep, obviously, but like what type of reps would you say are your best clients? Like what are like for me, I have my own client traits that I look for in companies. What are your client traits you look for in reps? What are the characteristics they typically possess?
Yeah, I'd say that the reps who get the most value from working with me are the ones who are growth minded. They believe in the who, not how mentality. And like you kind of said earlier, they know that they shouldn't be doing everything on their own. They like the fact that they could pay someone to help them and kind of skip ahead all that, mistakes that you might make on your own. They're willing to invest in themselves and invest in others. The most successful reps that I work with, they have that long-term vision and they know what they want. They're just not always sure on the best path to take towards those goals. I'd also add that reps who are 1099 or reps who receive equity comp, they especially get a lot of value from working with me.
Got it. Can you tell us like some of the strategies that you essentially use, or maybe the processes that you take to essentially help reps achieve those kind of financial goals? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. This is something I tell every rep on pretty much the first meeting. The process that we take it's a 4-meeting process. So we have an intro meeting just to go over basics, see if we're a good fit. Then we have a second meeting where we'll dive deeper into the numbers and your future goals. After meeting 2, that's when we'll both decide whether or not to move forward and work together. Meeting 3 is when we'll walk through all your documents and statements, make sure we're still on the same page with everything. And then meeting 4 is when I will first present the first full plan. And then from there, we just get working on implementing any action items. As far as strategy goes, we try to tackle those action items in this order. First, we help you get organized. So your banking, your emergency fund, your credit cards, your debt, your budget. Second, we'll make sure that you're properly protected. So we'll look at your insurance, your estate planning, all your risk management stuff. And then 3, that's when we really focus on growing your net worth. So we'll look at your investments, your real estate, your equity comp, and all that good stuff.
Just something I have to ask. Does that include crypto at all?
So that's a good question. As far as crypto goes, I'm not really allowed to touch it as far as being under regulation from FINRA. It's hard for me to sell. I do have clients who hold it on their own. I try to make sure that it's not too large a percent of their portfolio. That's what I do.
Because of the risk, right?
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with it, right? I do personally think it's more of a gamble than an investment. Doesn't mean you can't make money gambling. But yeah, I try to make sure that they're not holding too large of a position in one thing. But it's the same thing with equity comp. A lot of people get equity comp from their company, and 90% of their investments are in their home company. So whether it's equity comp or a crypto, that's really what I'm looking at, is just making sure you're not too over leveraged on one thing.
Yeah, and again, like I'll pull from my own personal experience. Like I was over leveraged, I think, on startups. So the two of the startups. I mean, my first company IPO'd and exited, so like that worked out well for me. But two of the startups that I probably put the most in terms of work, and of course, and if people need to understand, like equity is not free. Like you get it at a discount. But one of the companies I worked for, I poured about $18,000 in. And, years later, and I was very bullish on it, but years later, for a variety of different reasons, they restructured the company, recapped it. Long story short, that wiped out all the investors, including myself, right? And so like that equity just poof, it's gone. It's worth nothing. And another company I actually was, I angel invested in, I was a second check in. And, they ended up exiting, but they, because of the terms in which the exit happened, even with my preferred stock, my $11,000 investment returned like, about 2K, so it was a loss, right? I'll write that off this year. But again, like, I think it's okay to gamble, but you have to have some kind of foundation, like long-term, where you say, yeah, like, I mean, look, our surrogate grandfather, Charlie Munger, and I think Warren Buffett would say this, is that like, compound interest is really the eighth wonder of the world, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and I think it was Einstein who said something about that, not understanding compound interest.
Yeah, no, totally. And, last thing, just as we kind of round out the interview, like, what do you believe sets you apart from, like, let's say, others in your field? And like, why should, sales reps in MedTech work with you? Me personally, my thing is just the fact that you work with reps, and the pay structure, the equity is very, in my opinion, it's very specific, right? Because you have to understand the risk profile of these companies. It's not just like any startup financial advice. But I don't want to, put words in your mouth. What's your answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar to what you said. I think reps like the fact that I'm in a similar position to a lot of them. I'm young, I'm growing my own business. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm also mission driven. I really care about my clients, kind of similar to the way that med reps care about their doctors and the patients. Even though I am young, I do have a team that I lean on here at my firm. And I often bring on other advisors to work together on cases, which I think is something that people like to see rather than a solo advisor or a one-man firm. What med reps do is really just super important, and not everyone understands what it is that they really do, right? People are often shocked, as I kind of was at first, that these reps are in surgeries with doctors. So I think reps like the fact that I not only understand what they do, but I also kind of admire the work they do. And really, I'm just grateful to be able to build a business serving people who I not only enjoy working with, but also they're doing important work in healthcare.
No, totally. And, again, I wanted to make it like a nice tight episode so a lot of the reps can listen to this like on their way to work. But just a couple quick rapid fire questions for you. For my wealth management advisor, he had a few like must read books for me. What are some of your favorite, let's start with financial books, financial recommendations that you personally like and you recommend to clients?
Yeah. So one great one is Psychology of Money. That's something I pretty much recommend to everybody.
By Morgan Housel.
Morgan Housel. Yep. That's a big one. Truly, I prefer reading books that aren't necessarily financially related. I like reading books, biographies about people, learning from others' mistakes. I like reading more. I like history. I like war. Lately, I've been reading a lot of Dan Sullivan, Benjamin Hardy books. So like Who Not How, 10 Times is Easier Than 2 Times. I think those are good books that really translate to any field. And so that's what I've been recommending lately.
Yeah, no, and I think I have, let's see, I have one of their books. Is a really good one. Here we go. The Gap and the Gain.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
I haven't read it yet, but it's on my bookshelf. So
it's a good one. It's a really good one, especially for like a small business owner or entrepreneur. It's really solid. No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I like taking advice and I like taking info from outside the industry and figuring out a way to kind of bring it into personal finance.
Yeah, and I think that's also why like I wanted you on the show. Like, I've seen other financial advisors on LinkedIn, but just through your content, like I've been educated a lot, and you have a really interesting background. You do jujitsu, you do a lot of self-development, and I personally like partnering with people in business who are exposed to ideas outside of their field and then bring them in for the betterment of the client. I really like that a lot. Just to kind of round out, like any sort of last piece of advice to our audience and everything, and for the audience who's listening, just look up Matt on LinkedIn, just MATTSIMON, and you'll find that he has he's a great headline that just pretty much says like, I help MedTech reps plan for their financial future, something like I butchered that.
Yeah,
but
no, close enough.
Look, it's even better. I help medical device reps manage money efficiently. It's even better than I said.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, as far as advice goes, I would really say kind of what Omar touched upon is take advantage of your benefits through your company. Don't read everything you see online. Ignore some of the TikToks telling you that 401ks are a scam or something.
Dude,
definitely take advantage of
finance TikTok finance TikTok is a scam overall, man. It's just
it is. There's a lot of not fully licensed people on there trying to sell one product or another. So you got to be careful. But I would just say take advantage of your employee benefits. Know what you're investing into. Like I said before, there's nothing wrong with crypto. There's nothing wrong with individual stocks or something. Just make sure you know why you're putting money into something. You're not just putting it in because your friend told you or even an advisor told you. Make sure you understand what you're investing in and the purpose of it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And even me, I have to remind myself of that because, I have my wealth management advisor. I have my portfolio there, but I have a Robinhood account, so I'll buy stuff. And sometimes there's a temptation to buy something, even if it's just $50 or $100. But I always ask myself, like, okay, how well do I understand this? And I think like just avoiding things I do not understand, like, yeah, I've missed out on some big stocks, but I've also missed out on some ones that like tanked, and I think learning to manage your emotions is pretty important when it comes to investing.
And even if you are going to invest in individual stocks or things that you don't fully understand, just make sure you know that it's more of a gamble and you're not taking your retirement account and, putting it all into one investment. Just make sure that you're being balanced, and nothing wrong with gambling. Just make sure it's only a small portion of your portfolio.
No, totally. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I hope to have you back on. And to our listeners out there, go give Matt a follow. Check out his content for yourself. And then when you're ready for it, book time and have an intro meeting with him. I think, Matt, you just do simple like intro meetings to learn about people and see where you can help them, right?
That's exactly what it is. It's nice and quick, 15 to 30 minutes, nothing crazy. My only goal of that first meeting is to get a second meeting. So
Perfect. Awesome. All right. With that being said, I'm your host, Omar Khateeb, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. And most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who'd really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.